Hello, my name is Rob, and this is my initial post for the Managed Care Cast playlist. The topic that I will be covering from this playlist is called Transparency and Coverage Data to Expose Ghost Rates and Hold Payers Accountable. And this playlist or this episode is by David. Sorry if I butcher this, but Mullestein, I think. The podcast episode itself talks about what the ghost rates are, the data gaps, and why stronger oversight is good to help transparency and coverage files. David Mullestein is the founder and CEO of Simple Healthcare. In this podcast episode, he mainly talks about his most recent articles when it comes to dealing with transparency in coverage files, um, which is also known as TIC. An interesting fact that I found from this podcast episode is that Aetna, Cigna, and United Healthcare's TIC files were more than 90% ghost rates. Another way of putting this is that they are billing codes for procedures that aren't done by any specific physician. They can be done by anybody. Um, the ghost rates the are basically negotiated rates for services that providers will never perform. That creates transparency that allows customers to compare most of the healthcare services offered. It also offers up the idea of searching for better options for the patient. Like the patient can go look around and see what works best for them, and also the healthcare system can help them find something better that works for them. And it helps them for healthcare, the benefits of healthcare, and overall better outcomes of procedures, medicine, sickness, and etc. All types of stuff like that. Data gaps, on the other hand, in the analysis, United Healthcare had very little data on inpatient data, and Cigna had a lot of not finished outpatient data. Um, Based on that information, according to Mullestein, places like CMS need to have more strict regulations when it comes to the ghost rates, and they need to come up with a plan to make it so it's regulated more. And another interesting fact from this episode is that the TIC files, also known as the transparency and coverage files, is that they were very big in the healthcare system. They were helping the healthcare system move a step forward towards more transparency for the patients so they can find what works best for them, and more transparency for the physicians so they can get the best quality time with their patients, if that makes sense. The ideas from this episode did catch my attention because I honestly I had no knowledge of the idea of transparency, especially in the healthcare system for the people, and on how TIC data can affect the greater and worse outcomes of transparency. I found it interesting because it can offer more options or more ideas for people to look through to find what works best for them. And it helps them try to find something that, because everybody's different, nobody is the same, and everybody has their own preferences, and everybody's mind or body works differently. So this essentially will just help that. And it did affect my thought process because in this class I learned something new about the healthcare system every single week. And I've seen a reoccurring trend of the podcast that I've chose about learning how the healthcare system comes up with ideas or methods to make it more about the people. And lastly, the question for me that this podcast raised is what other programs out there um, can help with these issues. I didn't do any further research on this topic outside of the podcast, especially with ghost rates and TIC. I am just curious to know if there are any other programs or ideas out there that can help with this situation. And what other programs do contribute to these ideas, either making it greater or worse. But that concludes my video, and thank you for watching.